While attention has been on Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's indictment and arraignment of former President of the United States, Donald Trump, just last week, the county prosecutor in Georgia, Fani Willis, is also making significant progress. People may be wondering where her indictment and charging decision is. Back in January, when the special purpose grand jury, not a grand jury that could actually indict, but could only advise the special prosecutor or the prosecutor in this case about potential charges, had heard witness testimony and seen evidence, she told the chief judge of the Fulton County Courthouse that her indictment decision was imminent. However, that grand jury was disbanded in January with a report that many of us have heard about because the foreperson took to the airwaves and told everybody what happened in that room. However, it is important to note that we are still unaware of the identities of those who were recommended for indictment. We have been waiting for an imminent decision since January, and it is now April. There are two things that we should keep an eye on. Firstly, under Georgia's unique body of law, a criminal defendant can request a speedy trial and proceed to trial as quickly as 2 months from the end of the grand jury's work that indicted the defendant. Secondly, there is a regular grand jury that was in session until the end of March in Fulton County, Georgia, but no one knows its decision. Many people, including myself, believe that the grand jury was presented with evidence regarding Donald Trump for various reasons. Firstly, the press has been actively covering this story and would have noticed witnesses going in and out of the courthouse, as well as the frequent comings and goings of Fani Willis's office. Although there are secrecy protections surrounding the grand jury process, the press would have likely put two and two together and speculated that Donald Trump was being considered by the grand jury. Additionally, we know that there are 18 separate targets in the Fulton County investigation, including the use of fake electors and the chairman of the Republican Party in Georgia. The individuals targeted by the investigation include Donald Trump, Lindsey Graham, Mark Meadows, and others. It is likely that someone will be indicted soon. Although the Fulton County prosecutor has already received the results of the special purpose grand jury, she still needs to present live witnesses. Although nobody saw these witnesses in March, people are speculating that Fani Willis will make her presentation in May. She is receiving a lot of attention and anticipation as a result of having the grand jury's results. Since there's a regular grand jury every 2 months, Fani Willis is waiting until May because she is not yet prepared for trial. If there is a 2-month period between the end of the grand jury and the start of the trial, she wants to be ready just in case Donald Trump and his lawyers, who are as crazy as a fox, decide not to waive their right to a speedy trial and request to go to trial in 60 days. Therefore, Fani Willis has been working hard since January, February, March, and April to prepare her case, witnesses, witness files, and investigators in case Donald Trump and his lawyers decide not to waive their right to a speedy trial and request to go to trial in 60 days. She needs to be ready to try the case, not just indict it, by July, knowing that the grand jury's work will end in May. Although Donald Trump may choose to delay the trial, it would be a good strategy to be ready just in case. There's another clock to keep an eye on in Fulton County, Georgia, and that is May 1st. This is an alternate theory that Fani Willis may use because Donald Trump's new lawyers in Georgia have filed a motion to dismiss the case. Some lawyers in Georgia have filed a motion to dismiss the indictment, claiming that the special purpose grand jury's recommendations are polluted and corrupted by the process. They argue that the grand jury, which isn't an indicting entity, has been compromised. They are pointing to various things that have been reported in the paper, including the comments made by the jury's foreperson in multiple interviews. These lawyers are fiddling and trying to find little things to discredit the grand jury's report and its recommendations. These lawyers are arguing that the entire process was polluted and corrupted, and they want to throw out the special purpose grand jury altogether. However, they are missing an important point. The prosecutor doesn't necessarily need a recommendation from the grand jury. While it is helpful, she can go directly to the regular grand jury in May and present her evidence, witnesses, and documents such as text messages, emails, and telephone recordings of Donald Trump, without relying on the special purpose grand jury's report. It is that Fani Willis has 3 or 4 solid cases against Donald Trump, and she could walk out with an indictment without caring about what happened in the special purpose grand jury. However, Judge McBurney, who oversees the whole process in Fulton County, has told the parties to be ready to argue against the motion to dismiss on May 1st. While Fani Willis could surprise everyone by presenting her case to the March grand jury, some people think that this is unlikely. Nonetheless, there are those who believe that she could issue her indicting and charging decision and indict Donald Trump right before the end of April, just before May 1st. I don't think Fani Willis will issue an indictment right before May 1st. Instead, she will argue against the special purpose grand jury's report being vacated or dismissed. She will also remind the judge that she doesn't necessarily need the special purpose grand jury report to do her job as the prosecutor. She can simply take the case to the regular grand jury in May. In my opinion, the whole issue is much ado about nothing. Therefore, when May 1st arrives, Judge McBurney, who has been on Fani Willis's side all along, will rule in her favor. She will then present the case, along with her line prosecutors and investigators, to the regular grand jury in May, who will be asked to return an indictment by the end of May. The reason she is working to build her case is likely due to speculation that other charges may be filed against Donald Trump in the future. Fani Willis is likely going for a more complicated case using the RICO, Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, which allows her to use conspiracy and predicate acts to tie together various individuals. The case will involve fake electors, as well as Donald Trump, Lindsey Graham, Mark Meadows, Rudy Giuliani, and others, who will be put together in a criminal conspiracy. The RICO conspiracy is usually used for organized crime cases, where there is a hub and spoke structure, similar to the wheel of a bicycle. In this case, Donald Trump is the hub, and all the other individuals are connected to him through spokes on the wheel, which represents the conspiracy to interfere with the Georgia election process, which is a crime. When Donald Trump attacks Fani Willis and calls her racist, an animal, and claims that she is after him because she is a Democrat, he is attempting to distract from the fact that he made one perfect phone call. The phrase "one perfect phone call" from Donald Trump has been used so many times that it could be a drinking game, and everyone would be completely inebriated. If I received $1 for every time he said it, I would be a multi-billionaire. However, the problem with this phrase is that it is not true. In fact, it's fake news, to be frank. It's not just one phone call, but at least 4 phone calls that Donald Trump made, most of which have been recorded and played for the special purpose grand jury and the future regular grand jury. The one he likes to focus on is the perfect phone call, which he made on January 2nd, 2021, right after the election. He called Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State of Georgia, and asked if they could find 11,780 votes, which is all he needed to overcome Joe Biden's electoral advantage. He said that they could just find them somewhere, anywhere, just between friends. He claims that this is his perfect phone call and that there is nothing wrong with it, but he was trying to throw out 11,780 properly cast votes and disenfranchise 12,000 people in Georgia. In addition to the perfect phone call, there are other recorded phone calls that Donald Trump is aware of but wants to ignore. For example, he made a phone call to the late David Ralston, who was the Speaker of the House of the Georgia House of Representatives, and asked him to do him a favor. He suggested that they use the special purpose grand jury, which is now investigating him, to throw the election in his direction and take it away from Joe Biden. The irony of this situation is not lost, as it is the same special purpose grand jury that he suggested be used to help him win the election that is now investigating him. The 18 people targeted in Fani Willis's investigation, including the fake electors, the chairman of the Republican Party in Georgia, Lindsey Graham, and others, can all be tied together through the use of conspiracy, which is a prosecutor's dream. Conspiracy allows for all the evidence to be presented at once, showing the connection between each person and their actions in furtherance of the conspiracy. This organizing principle simplifies the complicated set of facts and characters for a jury, making it easier to teach them the case. The signs indicate that Fani Willis is moving closer to indicting Donald Trump in May. She will use conspiracy and RICO statutes to tie together all the elements of the crime, show probable cause, and obtain an indictment. This is also happening while she monitors the attacks on Alvin Bragg and the judge in New York. To protect herself and her staff, she has convened a meeting with her court personnel to enhance security protocols around her office. Due to the proximity of the courthouse, DA's office, and the Capitol building in Atlanta, any security breach could be problematic. And it's a serious issue. So, the authorities are taking steps to protect the Fulton County DA, Fani Willis, and her staff from any potential violence or threats, given the intense scrutiny and criticism they have received from Donald Trump and his supporters. This includes implementing new security protocols around the DA's office and other public buildings in the area. The concern is that Trump's calls for violence and intimidation against Willis and her family could lead to real harm or danger. In the past, judges and their families have been targeted and even killed by violent individuals, which underscores the seriousness of the situation. Ultimately, it's important to ensure that the justice system is allowed to function without fear of retribution or violence. Regrettably, occurrences of prosecutors being targeted are becoming more frequent, although we may not wish to acknowledge this fact. It is imperative that we prevent any such incidents from happening again, especially in light of Donald Trump's criticisms of prosecutors and their families. Fani Willis is taking action to prevent this from occurring. To summarize, she is scheduled to appear before the regular grand jury in May, and will oppose the motion to dismiss on May 1st. Her efforts will be successful, and she will obtain her indictment by the end of May. This will allow Donald Trump the option of a speedy trial until July, should he choose to pursue it. Regrettably, occurrences of prosecutors being targeted are becoming more frequent, although we may not wish to acknowledge this fact. It is imperative that we prevent any such incidents from happening again, especially in light of Donald Trump's criticisms of prosecutors and their families. Fani Willis is taking action to prevent this from occurring. To summarize, she is scheduled to appear before the regular grand jury in May, and will oppose the motion to dismiss on May 1st. Her efforts will be successful, and she will obtain her indictment by the end of May. This will allow Donald Trump the option of a speedy trial until July, should he choose to pursue it. Toni Willis is well prepared for her case, having dedicated the time between January and July to her preparations. Regardless of whether Donald Trump is prepared or not, we will soon discover if he intends to repeatedly delay proceedings. Fani Willis will contest any attempts to postpone the case by 6 months or even a year. This is the next anticipated event in a series of many, with numerous upcoming developments on the horizon. With Donald Trump, it seems as though the shoes keep dropping, much like a centipede, with the first being Manhattan, the second being Fani Willis and the likelihood of racketeering charges in May. The third, fourth, and fifth shoes are yet to drop, including the case of Jack Smith. Mar-a-Lago is at the center of intentional interference with Congress during the insurrection on January 6th, as well as the subsequent failure to facilitate a peaceful transfer of power. Additionally, Donald Trump raised $300 million on the false premise that Joe Biden was not duly elected President of the United States. This constitutes the fifth shoe to drop in a series of ongoing developments. Looking ahead, the sixth shoe will likely be the civil fraud case filed by Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, for $250 million. The trial is scheduled to commence on October 2nd in a New York state court before Judge Engoron. If found guilty, this could permanently put Donald Trump out of business and result in a permanent ban on him, his children, and 17 others from being officers or directors of a New York company. It's anyone's guess what developments will unfold next, but one thing is for certain, we're far from reaching the end of this saga. As we await the next hot take, it's worth keeping a close eye on Fani Willis and her actions in response to Donald Trump's maneuvers, as well as on Alvin Bragg and Jack Smith in New York. Jack Smith, in particular, possesses formidable skills as a federal prosecutor, including the ability to jump ahead of other cases and be the first to try his cases against Donald Trump. While he may be the last to indict, he could very well be the first to bring charges to trial. As we navigate this new era of Trump indictments, I will continue to provide daily hot takes on these ongoing events, and even hourly updates if necessary.